Collecting coins and money has to be one of the most popular hobbies of our time. And yet, there are so many different varieties. Where's the sweet spot? Most collectors collect what interests them, and that could be bullion, it could be semi-numismatic, it could be old hammered coins, it could be finds that have been dug up from the ground after thousands of years, it could be shipwreck coinage, it could be British sovereigns, it could be American pre-33. The list goes on and on and on. But within each of those categories, what should you be looking out for, and where is that sweet spot? So this is going to be a two-part video. Part one is going to look at what the sweet spot actually means. And then in the next part, we're going to take some examples of each of these different types of coins and say, is this in the sweet spot or not? And what difference might it make? So what we're going to look at today in this video is 5 possible areas that you can look at in order to work out coin by coin whether the coin that you're interested in buying is actually in the sweet spot. And so let's take a look at the first one. The first one is margin. What effect does margin have on the sweet spot? Well, if the margin on the kind of coin that you're buying is too high, in other words, if there is a massive difference between the price that you buy it for and the price that you can sell it for, then that can have a big impact, as you might expect. And generally, for example, silver coins have a higher difference between buying and selling prices than gold coins, particularly for semi-numismatic and almost bullion type coins. So it follows that gold coins can quite often be in the sweet spot. There could be other factors as well, which we'll go over in this video. But the general rule is that have a look at the margins, and what that means is before you buy something, check how much the same thing could sell at and to who. And if there's a very small difference between possible buying and possible selling price, then that defines the amount of exposure or risk that is identified as part of the purchase transaction. The next thing to consider when you're buying coins is demand. Is the demand there? Clearly, if you buy something and there is a great deal of demand and that demand is sustainable, then there'll be a lot of people interested in that item when you come to want to sell it and move on or exchange it for something else. How do you identify whether or not there is a high market demand? One thing I've noticed, and you may have noticed when you sell coins on eBay, is there is a massive difference in interest between gold coins of a particular price range and generic silver coins, for example. You'll find that although the silver item can be a lot cheaper, there's very, very much fewer people who are interested in buying it. There is always a buyer for everything, but it's not a race to the finish. There aren't 10, 20, 30 people wanting to buy a particular item. And the more interesting an item is, I've noticed the more demand there is. And it's funny that you think that demand would fall off as prices rise, but I've actually found that for coins, that can often be the opposite. If you have something that is pretty distinctive or is pretty rare or doesn't often become available, then the amount of demand and interest in that item can be absolutely huge. And quite often, if you're selling those kind of coins on eBay, you can have 30, 40, 50 watchers, you can have 30, 40 bids. Whereas if you're selling something which is a little bit duller, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more everyday, then you may fight to get 1 or 2 bidders involved. And of course, something which has multiple bids and multiple bidders, can sell much more easily at a higher price than something with very, very few bids. But that's just one area where you can work out what the demand is. Another one is to watch live auction bidding. So it's almost like being a phantom seller or a phantom buyer. Go to the next big auction and look at Heritage Live. Look at the coin cabinets next auction on the 29th of December. And just imagine if you were in the market to buy these coins. Look at the auction. Watch the auction unfold. Watch the auctioneer. See which kind of items get panic buying because so many people want them, and see which ones are left on the table with nobody being interested. And next time you're thinking about buying something for your own collection, make sure it's one of those items that has a sustainable demand for multiple people and a level of interest that is going to help you when selling. The third thing that I want to focus on when it comes to looking at that sweet spot is the market trends overall, because coins are like many, many other items, that they are fashionable to some extent. They go into or out of fashion. Are Queen's Beasts the flavour of the month? Are high-class sovereigns the flavour of the month? Is everybody buying silver at the moment? Is the latest 50p piece? How about the enhanced reverse proofs over in the States? Is that $2,000 sustainable? Is now the right time to be selling or buying one of those kind of coins? And by watching market trends, you can then work out where you need to be. How do you see market trends? Well, there are a number of auction sites, for example, DNW that have a very good database, London Coins that have a very good database, Heritage that have a very good database. Those coins will let you look up anything you're interested in and seeing all the potential selling prices over, even as much as an 8 to 12 year period. And by looking at those market trends, you can see the likely outcome of you trying to sell whatever you're buying over a period of time. And that can be very, very telling. Is it something like the 1937 sovereign proofs that have been gradually rising over time? What are they doing now? How about the last few sales? Have they been rising slightly? Have they been falling slightly? Is it seasonal? Were they in the sweet spot at one point, and are they not in the sweet spot now? When you're spending your hard-earned cash on a coin from the Royal Mint, quality is absolutely critical, and that's why you should be buying your next modern coin from the Coin Connection. Use special code Bonnie at checkout for 2% off all of your purchases. The next factor is affordability, and that's affordability in absolute terms. And coins can be both too expensive and too cheap. It doesn't mean to say that if they're too cheap, they can't be sold. If they're too expensive, there are certainly buyers around for things which are very expensive in absolute terms, too expensive in relative terms. But what are the kind of issues that you might come across? If it's too cheap, there may be too many available. There may be postage issues. For example, if a coin costs £10, then it costs maybe £3.50 to post it with some kind of tracked delivery. If a coin is worth less than £50, then it generally is too expensive to mail it by special delivery, and yet special delivery is the only way of protecting yourself as a seller. So the risks of selling cheaper coins actually can be quite considerable and may not be worth the effort. And if the risks of selling them are too high, then the risks of buying them may be wasteful as well. It may be better to buy one coin at £500 or £200 or $500, wherever you're living, and just have that one coin and trade that, rather than to have a number of cheaper coins which are much, much more work to sell. And on the higher side, for example, there are many coins at prestigious auctions that sell for between £5,000 and £20,000, £20,000 or $20,000. There are fewer that seem to sell for 25 to 100,000. There are fewer of those kind of coins, but the sales are a little bit harder, and there's quite a few of those kind of coins that go unsold because that right buyer, that one buyer, does not happen to be there at that particular time placing a bid. So there is a sweet spot for coin values, and I would suggest that the sweet spot is between around about £100 at the bottom and around £5,000 at the top. Coins over £5,000 are a little bit more difficult to sell, or they need to sell in specialist auctions which have high trading costs as well. And the last factor that I want to talk about when it comes to looking at the sweet spot is what I call distinctiveness. How distinctive is the coin? Also maybe known as homogeneity or something like that. Is it different from other coins, or is it the same as other coins? What are its limitations? Why should people be interested in it? Is it limited by mintage? Is it limited by grade? Is it limited by distribution? What are the barriers to people buying that particular item from other places? So if you have coins which are very difficult to find and you have one of those available, people are much more likely to buy that one from you as opposed to having a choice of half a dozen. So a coin which is a 63 grade when the average grade is 61 stands out, and that's a coin which is in a particular sweet spot. So I hope that video, I don't want to go on for too long on this, there is going to be a part B looking at specific coins, but I hope that gave you a little bit of something to think about, and we'll get lots of comments about what the sweet spot actually is, as well as what types of coins might be in the sweet spot. And it's obviously different for everybody, different in different countries, and it varies according to time as well. So it's a moving feast, but it's an interesting way of looking at coin purchase decisions, I think. So that's all there is for me at the moment. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to the channel. There will be hopefully a lot of interesting videos over the next 12 months, so hopefully worthy of your subscription. And please comment, and please click on the notify bell if you'd like to know when the next videos are out as they come along.